My name is Andrew Coleman. It is what law enforcement calls an AKA. The reason for that will be explained later. I led a normal life. I graduated high school in the middle of my class and then went to a public university. I majored in marketing, and upon graduation, I got a job in sales. I loved sales, and I was good at it. 10 years later, I was general sales manager for a regional company. I had never married, so I was doing fairly well, economically. That's when I met Mary Ann. She was a divorcee with a 10-year-old daughter. We fell in love and were married within a year of our first date. Mary Ann had inherited a small real estate firm from her first husband. That's the way she told me she got it. I found out later it was part of the divorce settlement. Things went smoothly for the first few years. I am telling the truth when I say I was a good husband and a great father to her daughter. I did not want kids, and I had a vasectomy when I was 25 years old. Mary Ann had her tubes tied after her first child, so there was no problem there. The problems started when there was a recession, followed by a pandemic, then another recession. Her real estate business almost tanked. Almost, but she saved it. She took on a silent partner. This partner was so silent that he was kept a secret. No one, not even me, knew his name. That caused a problem in our marriage. Why can't I know who this guy is? That was a surefire way to start an argument that would end up with me sleeping in the spare bedroom for a night or two. Her answer was always the same. He wants to remain unknown. If I told you he would not be unknown anymore, would he? This secret was driving me crazy. Why could she not tell me? I'm her husband, for God's sake. I'm not going to tell anyone. I felt I should know. After 3 months of this silent partner crap driving me crazy, I discussed it with my best friend. I had known Troy since grade school. He always had my back. This time, he also had a solution. Troy owned his own business, an auto parts store. After a couple of break-ins, his insurance company demanded he put in an electronic surveillance system. He bought a deluxe spy package from the local spy shop and personally installed hidden cameras after closing one night. He discovered that the break-ins were an inside job. He suggested I do the same. I do not work at her real estate company. I hardly ever even go there, so I do not have the keys. But I know where Mary Ann keeps her extra set here at the house. One day she told me that she was going to a mortgage convention in St. Louis. She would be away for 3 days. That was my chance. I waited until the secretary locked the place up and left for the day, then went in. I hid the cameras all around her office, another in the lobby, and one pointing out into the parking lot. They were motion-activated and recorded both video and sound. They sent everything to a website that I could access any time I wanted. I did not have to wait long to discover what was going on. The day after she came home from St. Louis, I got the surprise of my life. I accessed the site and watched my wife sit at her desk and do the normal things she did every day. At 5 p.m., she closed the office, and her only employee, the secretary, left for the day. Mary Ann waited at the locked door until a black SUV pulled up. Out of the vehicle exited a black man, a very large black man carrying a gym bag. I recognized him. He is James Poppy Diaz. In college, he was a second-team All-American tight end in his junior year. He could have been a high draft pick except for the fact that the summer before his senior year, he was caught importing a boatload of marijuana into the States. He was given 5 years and was out in 3. Everyone who follows football knows his story. I am a big football fan and could have used him on my fantasy team last year. Anyway, Mary Ann opened the door for him and then led him into her office. I watched as he took her in his arms and they kissed. As his tongue tried to strangle her, his hands squeezed her back. They broke the kiss, and he started to unbutton her blouse. She was grinning as she let him. "Did that dumb you're married to question you about our trip to New Orleans?" he asked. "Hell no. He bought the mortgage convention story. He thinks I was in St. Louis at the convention. Your friend seems really nice." "Yeah? Do you think so?" Nice is not a word that is ever used to describe Ramon Lopez. He's one of the leaders of the Rio Bravo drug organization. His cartel has probably killed more people on both sides of the border than died in that war in Iraq. I do think that Mexican likes you, though. Don't I know it? I can't tell you how many times he pinched my back or brushed against my breast the night we went to supper. I had never had two men at once. That was exciting. How did you meet him? We were in federal prison together, he replied. Do you ever regret missing out on playing pro ball? Hell no. Shoulder operations, knee operations, rehab, and now that problem with the players' brains from taking so many hits. I don't miss it. Besides, I make more money than most of them ever will. Speaking of money, I need you to put this with the $2 million I have in your safe. It's another $3 million. Next week, I'll have the balance I owe Ramon for fronting me the coke. How many houses are you going to buy this month? She asked. I was thinking about that apartment complex you have listed, but I need to wait a couple of weeks. I need to pay Ramon first. That's $1.4 million, asking price. My commission would be over $100,000. I could almost see the dollar signs in her eyes. I watched as Mary Ann walked behind her desk and took a big picture of herself off the wall. There was a hidden safe. I had no idea she had a safe in her office. By just a stroke of luck, one of the cameras was focused directly on it. I hurriedly grabbed a pen and watched as she spun the dial clockwise. Then it was left to 5, right to 25, then left to 1. I did not need to write it down. It is her daughter's birthday, May 25th, 2001. I sat back in my chair and decided to enjoy the rest of the show as I imagined what I was going to do with that $5 million. Mary Ann and I are history. I will not live with a cheater. They put on a really good show, and I had a front row seat. They kissed again, then Poppy pushed her to her knees as he unbuckled his belt and his pants fell to the floor. He kept telling her how much he enjoyed the way she performed and that she was the best he ever had. She obviously believed that lie, the line every man uses. I watched as they both climaxed. Then she went into the restroom to clean up. He wiped off with some tissues from a box on her desk and straightened his clothes. They kissed, and then he left. She waited 10 minutes, then she called me at home and told me she had worked late and was too tired to prepare supper. She would stop and pick up some Chinese food on her way home. I met her at the door and helped her with the food. As we ate, she told me how things had really picked up at work. She said she found a buyer for the apartment complex she had been trying to sell for almost a year. I grinned and told her how excited I was for her. She was very tired from her big day, and after supper, she went upstairs to soak in a tub. I went into the den and watched a ball game. Later that night, she begged off on us having intimacy. I was not that hard to convince. Who wants to go in behind a black drug dealer? As I lay in bed next to a snoring Mary Ann, I was thinking about everything I was going to do with the $5 million after I disappeared. I slid out of bed without waking her up. In the room with the desktop computer, I Googled Ramon Lopez. He had received a 10-year sentence for drug dealing. He was out in 6 and was deported. He is suspected of being one of the leaders of the Rio Bravo drug cartel. When I steal that money, Ramon and Poppy's friendship is going to be tested. I started developing my escape plan. From the perspective of Poppy, I knew that Mary Ann's real estate company was on the verge of bankruptcy the day I walked in. How? I'll explain that later. First, let me talk about me and my business. As you probably know, I am James Poppy Diaz. The Poppy came from my mother calling me her little Poppy. It stuck, and I am still called Poppy 40 years later. As a kid, I was bigger than most. I liked sports, and football became my favorite. I excelled in high school and earned a scholarship to a university on the Gulf Coast of Florida. My problems started when I was told that my mother was sick and needed an operation. She could not wait until I got a signing bonus. I let some guy talk me into riding on a boat with him as he went to the mothership. I helped him load 50 bales of grass onto his boat, and we sped off for a secluded inlet along Florida's nature coast. That hole forgot the extra gas can, and we ran out of gas. The Coast Guard came to our rescue the next morning. I ended up doing 3 years of a 5-year sentence at a federal prison in West Texas. Mama died, and I did not get to go to the funeral. In prison, My cellmate was a Mexican by the name of Ramon Lopez. We became good friends. Since that prison was about 60% Mexican, it was good to have a Mexican friend to watch my black back. We talked a lot. His family was in the import-export business in Mexico. They imported drugs from Colombia and exported them to the States. He suggested that I go into business with him when I got out. He would have to clear it with his uncle, Julio Lopez, the head of the cartel, but he was sure I could become one of his dealers. We were released the same month. I moved back to Memphis, my hometown. I had no way of contacting Ramon Lopez, but he had told me not to worry. He would contact me. 2 months went by without a word. I was beginning to think it was just bull talk between two federal inmates just to pass the time. Then one day my doorbell rang, and there stood Ramon with 2 other men. We hugged, and I invited them inside. He asked if I was ready to start working for him. Hell yes. I can't find a job anywhere, and Grandma is working as a maid. We barely have money for groceries. He handed me a wad of cash, about $1,000, and took me to a Mexican restaurant. There, in a private room, we discussed business over a steaming plate of fajitas. When we were finished, I offered to pay the check. I own this place, Poppy. Work hard and invest your money in legitimate businesses. That's the way to get ahead in this world. I did work hard. I followed his business plan exactly as he laid it out. We were a cash-and-carry business, modeled after McDonald's. You drive up and place your order and pay the man who took it. Move a little further down the street and pick up your order. Business was good and getting better. A recession hit and people did not have money for their rent, but they always found the money to pay me to take their mind off all their troubles. Then just as things were getting better, the pandemic struck the country. People sat at home and used their government checks to pay me to make them feel good again. Grandma died and I was able to give her a big funeral. I was living in a luxury condo and counting my money. Life was good. One day, one of my order fillers was picked up by the cops. I could feel the fear that ran through my organization. Just like McDonald's employees, he had insurance. I paid for his attorney. He kept his mouth shut, and he pled down to a year in county. His mother never missed a rent payment or went hungry. I made sure of it. I also made sure every one of my boys knew what I had done for his family. That builds loyalty. But this is the drug business. When you are successful, everybody and their mama knows about you. One night, another crew moved in on one of my primo corners. I called Ramon. 2 nights later, there was a drive-by on that corner, and the 2 brothers selling drugs out of the back of their car were killed. At the same time, there was a fire at the house where their gang was known to hang out. 4 members were burned alive, and 3 were never going to get out of the hospital. My boys went back to that corner the next day. 6 months ago, the unthinkable happened. Some guys tried to hit the stash house where I kept my money and the drugs. It was well guarded, and when all was said and done, a couple of my guys were dead, but so were all the bad guys. I moved my money to my condo and posted guards day and night. I was trying to determine what to do with the $15 million I had hidden in my spare bedroom when one of my boys showed up with this 19-year-old blonde college student. She wanted to talk to me about becoming one of my salesmen. She was in a sorority, and lots of her friends loved to get high and party. She wanted me to front her the drugs. After I let her have a taste of a drug we were marketing as a new and better form of ecstasy, she woke up the next morning in my bed. "I'm sure I can sell this along with the coke. I'll get top prices." I looked into those blue eyes of hers and asked why she did not buy what she could afford and sold it to her friends. "Start small and grow into it," I suggested. "I don't have time to start small. I attend Ole Miss, so I have to pay out-of-state tuition, and it is due in 2 weeks. I also need the dorm fees, money for food, and books." "Your parents can't help?" I questioned. "No. Mama's real estate company is about to go bankrupt, my dad is dead, and my stepdad will not help. I have to do this myself or quit school." I asked the name of the real estate company after I told her I would give her enough to sell so that she would not have to worry about her tuition money. She thanked me by offering me her tight 19-year-old. I accepted. The next morning, I walked into her mother's real estate office. It looked like it was on the brink of shutting down. One lady sat at the receptionist's desk. I asked to speak to Mary Ann. A pretty blonde woman about my age came out of an office and welcomed me. I could tell where her daughter got her looks. Mama looked like she could pass for her daughter's big sister. The only difference was Mama's. They are way bigger and obviously store-bought. I said I was interested in income-producing property. She took out a book and showed me pictures of this strip mall that was for sale. The owner had died and his heirs wanted to sell. Then she showed me pictures of 3 houses that the same man had owned. She said they were for sale also and were great rental properties. She was leaning over my shoulder, pointing out the amenities of the houses with a manicured nail. What would they all cost me? Cash money. All 3 houses and the strip mall? She asked. I grinned and nodded as that big again brushed by my ear as she stood up. She hurried back behind her desk, put on a pair of reading glasses, then started pounding on a calculator. She looked up over her glasses. Somewhere just under 11 million. All commissions included. Let's offer them 10 million, all cash at the time of closing. Cash? Like a cashier's check? She asked. Cash, like Benjamin's. She got up and went to her door and told her secretary to take the rest of the day off. She locked the front door of the building and then came back into her office. There was a couch and chair with a coffee table off to one side. She sat on the couch and motioned for me to sit in the chair as she kicked off her high heels and put her legs up on the couch. I could see the tops of her thigh-high stockings. We have to be very careful. No banks or mortgage companies can be involved in transactions like you are suggesting. I'll look for properties that are privately owned with no mortgages. I think we should set up a company to handle the purchase of these properties. It will be a real estate management company that will handle everything from renting to collecting the rents and maintenance. Sounds fine with me, just keep my name out of it. You'll be my silent partner. How does that sound? Just so nobody ever knows I am involved. No one will ever know. When would you be ready to close if the clients accept your offer? Anytime you say, partner, I replied. I'll need some of the cash when I make the offer. Earnest money, you know. Do you have a place to keep it? She got up off the couch and walked stocking feet behind her desk. She removed a picture of herself receiving some type of reward, and there was a wall safe. She motioned for me to come over. I watched as she spun the combination and opened the safe. There were just a couple of documents in it. Is this big enough to hold $1 million? Hell yes, that's big enough to hold the entire $10 million. Who knows of this safe or the combination? No one, not even my husband, she replied. If I'm going to store my money here, I'll want the combination. She turned and took a pencil off the desk and wrote it on one of those yellow sticky pads. I took it and turned back to the safe. I closed it and then spun the dial. My first try did not open it. Let me help you, she said. She put her left hand on top of mine. I noticed her wedding ring. Together we moved the dial until I heard a click. The safe opened. I grinned and turned towards her. Her arms went behind my neck and pulled me in for a tongue-filled kiss. It was a passionate, very good kiss that caused me to get an instant hard-on. Or maybe it wasn't the kiss that got me hard. Maybe it was thinking about being with her daughter just a few hours ago. I decided to keep that a secret. My hands squeezed her back as we kissed. I wanted to look at those so I started unbuttoning her blouse. They looked magnificent in her lacy bra. I unsnapped it without her complaining. I started chewing on it. Please, no marks, my husband, she gasped. She wiggled out of her blouse and skirt. Then she laid them with her bra on the desk before she led me over to the couch. We stayed connected for a couple of minutes. Then she put her hand between her legs and ran into the bathroom. She came out of the restroom grinning. So we have a deal? You close all your deals on this couch? I'll never tell, she laughed. The next morning, I called and asked if I could bring the cash over that afternoon. She told me to come around 5 p.m. After me putting the money in the safe, it was another replay of the day before. She called my cell the next morning and told me the sellers had accepted my offer. I was invited to her office to celebrate that afternoon. That became a 2 or 3 time a week thing for me. I was being intimate with Mary Ann on Monday and Wednesday, sometimes at her office, and other times, if I was free during the day, she would come to my condo. It was exciting on Mondays especially. Her daughter, Cindy, was usually busy on Friday and Saturday with her sorority, but spent Sunday afternoons in my bed. After the first month, I let one of my top men, Marcus, join us for her first DP. That turned out to be a mistake. Marcus was a big, ugly brute of a brother. That guy could have played middle linebacker for any pro team, but he had never even made it out of high school before he was sent to juvie. A couple of years later, he did a nickel for assault. He was my enforcer. Every organization needs one. He keeps all my boys straight. Know what I mean? Okay. Let's say one of my order takers is light when they settle up at night. Marcus pays him a visit. Or say one of my delivery boys shorts a customer. Marcus handles those kinds of problems. I never had a problem with Cindy. She was always on time with the money. The problem was when Marcus and she started sneaking off together. She had developed a thing for him and him for her. Let me explain. Marcus is black. I mean black as in pure African tribe, black. I am more of a chocolate brown color. Cindy seemed to love their skin contrast, or maybe it was his brutal way of being intimate. On more than one occasion, I found out Marcus and her had met up at a hotel during the week. I took their secret meetings as a sign of disrespect. I let them play their little games until one day they pissed me off. I was ready for my Sunday afternoon session with her and she did not show up. I was pissed thinking about missing that tight back of hers. Marcus showed up around 7 p.m. and had Cindy's weekly payment. He told me that he would personally deliver her weekly package the next day. Me knowing that Marcus got what I should have gotten that Sunday afternoon was a bridge too far for me. The next week, I sent Marcus down to New Orleans to attend a meeting with a couple of Ramon smugglers. Another mistake. Cindy showed up at the condo Sunday afternoon around 1 p.m. Tashona opened the door for her and invited her in. Tashona is a very black, tough-looking South Memphis dyke. She owns a tattoo and piercing parlor where she is the only artist. She also has a few girls who work the streets for her. Let's just say she is a very strict boss lady. She does not use an enforcer. She enjoys that job herself. Where's Poppy? He'll be back shortly. He had to step out for a minute. Have a seat. She walked over to the bar. You drink rum and Coke, right? Yes, please, plenty of ice. It is so hot today. She was asleep before she finished the drink. 4 hours later, she woke up. I heard her scream. Then she came running into the living room naked except for her new tattoos. "What the hell did you do to me?" she screamed. "Just a little something so you'll always remember who you belong to." On her left breast was a heart with my name on it. Below her belly button was an arrow pointing with the words Poppy's above it. "The next time I catch you with Marcus without my permission, I'll have her tattoo your face. Understand? I own you, and I'll tell you who and when to be intimate. Now bend over that couch." She hung her head, and then did as I instructed. That was another mistake. I had used the couch in my office to close a few deals when I had to, but it had been some time ago. None had made me feel the way Poppy did. Maybe it was because he was rich. Who am I kidding? It was because he was black and had a big Johnson. It did not matter to me where the money was coming from. I wanted to be part of his life. I started meeting him 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes going to his condo during the day. When he suggested I go to New Orleans with him, I made an excuse with my husband to be gone for a week. It was a wonderful, amazing week. He introduced me to his friend, Ramon. I had my first 3 with Poppy and Ramon. I felt like such a Taking on 2 handsome men at once is something every woman should experience. After we finished, I lay in bed and listened to their plans to take over the drug business from Ramon's Uncle Julio. The man was getting old and would not change his way of doing business. They talked about retiring the old man. I lay there listening but dreaming at the same time. I was going to be part of this new business. Poppy explained how I would invest their money in properties all over the country. I would be rich. There was only one problem. I needed to divorce my husband. That would not be a big problem. Things had not been going well between us lately, especially since he refused to help my daughter with her tuition at Ole Miss. If her sorority had not given her a scholarship, she would have had to quit school and find a job. That was what my husband had suggested. With her sorority paying for everything now, that was not a problem anymore. The problem was, I am not in love with him any longer. I am in love with Poppy. Back to the perspective of Andrew Coleman. I am getting used to my new name. When I told Mary Ann that I was going to have to leave Sunday night for an early Monday morning meeting in Jackson, Mississippi, she smiled. As I went out the door, I got a kiss on the cheek and a "have a good trip." That would be the last time I ever saw her. I stopped by her office and retrieved my cameras and almost $7 million in the safe. Before I crossed the bridge over the Mississippi River, I stopped along Riverside Drive and threw my cell phone and laptop into the river. I had gone to an ATM earlier and only taken out what I would normally use on a business trip. I abandoned my car in a bad neighborhood in West Memphis, and my friend Troy picked me up. I gave him money for the car he bought for me and vanished into the night. I neither knew nor cared about what would happen to Mary Ann or Poppy, from the perspective of Marcus. My meeting with Mr. Nunez in New Orleans had taken a different turn than either I or Poppy expected. There had been an attempted coup of sorts in the cartel. Ramon had taken a shot at the king and missed. It seems the assassin he hired to do the job was loyal to the old man, not Ramon. Mr. Nunez was now second in command to the old man, Ramon's old job. He explained that Ramon had admitted how he and Poppy, along with some whore named Mary Ann, had planned this takeover a week ago in a hotel in New Orleans. I did wonder how they persuaded Ramon to tell them everything before burying him in the desert in northern Mexico. But I did not ask. Mr. Nunez offered me a deal. I could take Poppy's place as their distributor in Memphis. All I had to do was kill Poppy and his new woman. I told him I would do it. I was pissed when I saw what Poppy and Tashona had done to Cindy when I met her at a motel in Oxford that next Wednesday. I told her not to go to Memphis that week. I did not want her anywhere near Poppy ever again. She was worried about what Poppy would do to her if he caught us together. I told her that the cartel was going to take care of Poppy and that next week I would be running the operation. That seemed to settle her down. She was also worried about those tats. I told her not to worry about them. We will take care of them later. We both like the piercings. I told her to make up some excuse for not going to Memphis next Sunday. Then we spent the night being intimate and not worrying about Poppy. The next morning after breakfast, she left for class, and I drove back to Memphis. Sunday morning, she called Poppy and told him that she could not come due to a big sorority meeting that afternoon. She told me later he seemed disappointed. Monday, around noon, I showed up at Poppy's condo carrying a bucket of chicken from his favorite restaurant. The guard at the front door was surprised to see me. He started to stand when my silenced pistol put a 9mm bullet through the empty bucket and into his forehead. I sat him back in his chair with his head bent forward. It looked like he was asleep. I stepped inside the door. There was another guard watching television with the volume turned up loud. He looked around at me as I shot him in the head. I listened for a minute without touching the volume on the television. Poppy was being intimate with someone in his bedroom. I walked to the bedroom door and looked in. There on the bed with Poppy was Mary Ann. That saves me a trip. Mary Ann was screaming for him to be harder. Her voice trailed off as she saw me in the doorway. I shot her in her left eye as she looked at me and tried to warn Poppy. He scrambled to get up as I shot him twice. He fell over, laying on his back, looking up at me. This one is for Cindy. I shot him in his balls. He was moaning and trying to clutch his nuts when the final round went through his brain. I took out my cell phone and dialed a number Mr. Nunez had given me. I told whoever answered that it was done. I was instructed to wait. I waited. In about 15 minutes, a car pulled up in front of the condo. 3 Hispanic men walked up to the door and entered. He took a picture of both Poppy and the dead woman while his men ransacked the apartment. In a box in Poppy's closet, they found almost $2 million. Mr. Nunez counted out $100,000 and handed it to me. Your part. We thought he would have more cash, but that's fine. Leave the bodies. When the stink gets bad enough, the neighbors will call the cops. I suggest you take your girl to Las Vegas. There you will find some amazing tattoo artists. They may be able to turn those tats into something you will like. I did not bother to ask how he knew about the tats. We shook hands, and he said he was looking forward to doing business with me. They left before me. I had one more thing I wanted to do before I started my role working for Mr. Nunez as head of the Memphis operation. I drove over to South Memphis and walked into Tashona's tattoo parlor. There was only one other person there that Monday afternoon. Talk about being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Tashona looked up and saw the pistol. This is for what you did to Cindy. I put one in her mouth as she opened it to speak. Her customer was screaming her head off until I put 2 in her chest. She was guggling blood when I stepped over her to open the cash register and take what little money was in there. It looked like a robbery. Nothing new for this part of town. Since I had used a different pistol for these murders, there was no way to tie them together. Over the Thanksgiving holidays, I took Cindy to Vegas, from the perspective of Cindy. I was in a history class when I was called out and informed that my mother had been found dead. She was in bed with a black drug dealer. Can you imagine my surprise when I found out that the drug dealer was Poppy? I told the police that I knew nothing of her affair with Poppy. That was the truth. What the hell were they doing together? The next time Marcus and I were together, he said he had no idea either. He thought my mother was killed just because she was at the wrong place when those men killed Poppy. He said it was some type of revenge because Poppy had killed some people last year, like a drug war or something. I had to quit school to handle her affairs. My stepfather had disappeared. The police think he was killed also. His car was found in West Memphis, Arkansas. As far as I and the people he worked for knew, there was no reason for him being there. He was supposed to be in Jackson, Mississippi the day Mama was killed. His cell phone and laptop were also missing. The police said his last phone call had pinged a tower near Riverside Park. His body was never found. I closed the real estate company. It was when I was hauling off the furniture that I discovered the safe. I had a locksmith open it. There I found titles to properties in the name of a company that I did not know she owned. After visiting her lawyer, I discovered that I was now the owner of about $15 million of income-producing property. Marcus and I went to Vegas over Thanksgiving. A tattoo artist turned that Poppy's tattoo into a beautiful, colorful bird sitting on a tree limb. The heart on my left breast with Poppy's name in the middle was left, but Poppy was changed to Mommy. I never told Marcus about the safe or the properties in Mama's name. I did try to talk him into getting out of the drug business. I told him we were both going to end up just like Poppy and Mama. He refused. It was the only life he knew, and he was not giving it up. He said he was now in charge and working directly for the cartel. He thought he was untouchable. I thought differently. I sold everything Mama owned. After taxes, I had almost $11 million. Alone, I took a trip to the Cayman Islands. I opened a bank account and had the $11 million wired into that account. I bought a nice place on the beach. I eat fresh seafood and get high every day. A few of the locals keep me well satisfied. Know what I mean? Life is good. Back to the perspective of Andrew Coleman. I took the $7 million and disappeared into the mountains in the western part of the United States. I spend my days fishing the rivers near my property in the spring and summer, hunting in the fall, and riding my snowmobile in the winter. I've met a few snow bunnies, but I am enjoying my life too much to complicate it with another Mary Ann. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.